What's up, everybody? This is Justin. Welcome back to Tea with iiiiiivvivii. And we have some lovely guests here that we're going to introduce in just a second. But guys, just to give the overview for the people who are listening, and then for you guys, just as kind of a refresher or reminder, question answer show, right? So probably there's 3 of you guys, so each have 15 to 18 minutes or so, something like that, to ask me questions. The best way I can explain how I help people is there's a definition from Earl Nightingale, which I think I shared with you guys, that about success, where he says success is the pursuit of a worthy ideal, meaning if we know what we want and we're going for it, we're a success. But he predicts that most people by this definition are not successful, maybe 5% or less. And it's tough, right? Because it's tough to actually know what this is for us, and it's tough to go there. There's a lot of things that stop that from happening. So I tell people I basically help with performance, happiness, fulfillment. So really any questions that are kind of in that world or related to those things, could be more on the career side of that, or could be more on the personal side of that. But yeah, so those are some of the things I help with that'd be good questions for us to focus on today. So maybe we can just introduce everybody briefly, your name, what you do. And then we can get started and pick someone and get going and go from there. So maybe we'll go from the top of our little rectangle downwards. So Sandy, if you want to introduce yourself to us and to each other, and we can get started from there.
Well, hello, I'm Sandy Moore. I am the President CEO of the Leesburg Area Chamber of Commerce, and just really happy to be on here with Justin. We had Justin come and speak to our chamber and really had some great challenging things that I continue to think about, actually. Some of the things that you brought to our breakfast and really just our life in general. So I'm excited to be on here today to talk to everybody.
Awesome. Me too. All right, Joa.
Hi, I'm Joa. I came prepared with my tea because I'm all
good.
about it.
Good. I like
it. Yeah, there we go. I'm the membership and events director for the Leesburg Chamber of Commerce, and I also am excited to be here. I'm a very big fan of bettering yourself and trying to get successful. And Mondays and mornings are not my skill set, so I'm going to be a little but I'm very excited because I'm all about learning and trying new things. So I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Me too. Thank you.
But Joa's blah is everybody else, like most people's like awesome, charge. So just, we might not have been able to handle her like really.
Yeah. It's a good thing that we're having this in the morning instead of it like her
like
time.
Mellow.
We wouldn't be able to keep up with her energy.
That's right.
All right. Last but not least, it's a 3-way tie for first between the 3 of you. So, Patty. I think you're on mute, actually, Patty. Your audio.
Sorry about that.
There
I say hello.
That's okay.
Well, such an honor being with you here today, especially with these 2 beautiful ladies. Honored, really, Sandy and Joa. And of course, you, my love, that you have been during all these years a very good motivator and mentor. Even though that you are not mentoring me directly, I see you. I have followed your career, and ever since that I met you that first time, one of those builders that you were working for.
Yeah.
I still remember and cherish that moment. And as but you guys don't know, I'm real estate agent for can I say the name?
Yeah, sure.
with Remax 200, and I'm very, like I said, very honored to be here today.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's great to see you again. I know it's been a while since we've seen each other, and it's always great to see you. I think the last time we saw each other, we had coffee like maybe a year ago or something. But yeah, it's great to see you. You know Abby Nelson then, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, she's a rock star.
I know. Abby's
I love her.
I know her from like when I first started working at David Weekly Homes. She's really sweet. I like her a lot. Cool. Awesome. So we can get started. So I'll try to watch the time to make sure everybody gets same amount of time. So we've got 50 minutes divided by 3 people approximately, right? So 50 divided by 3. So we've got about 16 to 17 minutes per person. I think it's usually easiest to just kind of go person by person, because that way the flow isn't interrupted and we can kind of go as deep as possible at the time we have for each person. So Sandy, why don't we start with you, because you're at the top of our rectangle and just kind of makes it easy. So I'll set this just to kind of make sure we get to everybody, because sometimes I start talking with somebody and we could just easily take the whole 50 minutes on one person. And I don't want to do that to the other 2. So I'll put this at that, let me see. Let's see, 50, 16. So maybe I'll put this at 16 minutes, and that gives us like a 1-minute warning. Okay, cool. So Sandy, let's start with you. And this is going to be a lot of fun for the people watching. So we have 3 very, very sweet women on here. So it's a pleasure to spend the morning with you guys, or part of the morning. So Sandy, start us off. I'm sure you'll be a great start to this.
So I'm pretty much just asking you, right, some questions?
Yeah. So just asking me questions, where you're getting stuck, where the frustrations are, where the difficulties are. Same way, like if you were going to go to any life coach, or even for therapists, except for people watching, therapy, it's more like you're listening and years could go by and it's very possible that nothing could ever happen. But maybe you would go for a therapist for those reasons. This is more like life consulting, coaching, like, okay, where are we at? Where do we want to be? How do we get there? Why are we not there already? What is the difference between where we're at and where we want to be? How do we fix that? What do we do about it now? So really anything that's a frustration of like, hey, Justin, I don't know why this looks like this, or maybe not sure what to do next in a certain thing, or it could be anything like that.
Yeah, no, I got you. So it's something I've thought a lot about, honestly, since you've spoken at our breakfast.
Yeah.
And just in general, because like this for me, I'm in a very unique place in my life, and I hope that this doesn't come across the wrong way. But I am recently come off of a lot of trials and tribulations, personally, professionally, all of that. But I'm actually at a place for the first time in my life in a long time where it's like everything is actually going in the right direction. And it's an awesome, overwhelming like feeling of, okay, like professionally things are clicking. I mean, I've got the most amazing team now, and I'm not just saying that because Joe is on here and she's part of that, but it's the truth. Like for work, I have like just an amazing, amazing team. I have like this, we've got some really great creative things coming off on a personal level, like physically. I came off of, lost quite a bit of weight over the last year and a half or so. And I'm just trying to get healthy mainly. And I'm in a really healthy state. And like, so all of this stuff is like happening, but the big thing, I think about like, cause one of the things that you talked about when at the breakfast was that change happens when you're not comfortable. And that when there's something that you're not satisfied in your life, that's when change happens. Mm-hmm. And I've thought about that a lot. I thought about that in just people's careers where, when things are going really well, are we not getting to even better because we're satisfied, because we're content. We feel good. And I look back honestly about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I know that's where I was professionally, more content. Yeah. And I was reading this book and it reminded me of the quote that the enemy of great is good. Mm-hmm. And so if things are just good, you don't necessarily strive to change things. Mm-hmm. You keep in that, you just kind of go, okay, well, things are good, because what's bad about good? Nothing. Right. But we're not getting to great if we're at good necessarily. So I guess my question is how do you continue to have that level of not that it's not that you're thankful for where you are, but that level of discomfort or not being satisfied, to
Right.
continue to strive and push? Or what does that look like? I know, for me, I don't necessarily feel like I'm at a place of contentment, but it's definitely like, I feel really good about where we are, but I want to make sure that I don't get back to that place of contentment. I want to continue, like, as I'm going on this journey, to keep striving for greatness.
Right. Right. That's a good question. And, it's kind of like a first world problem, right? It's like, oh, Justin, my life is so great. Like, what do I do now? So that's amazing, first of all. And I mean, I'm really happy for you. And, from the little bit that I know you or that we know each other, you've really worked for that. And I have seen firsthand by being at some of these chamber things that, you and the people around you, Joa and others, really have created something amazing. I really didn't see that with the other chambers the way that you guys have. Not that I've been to all of them, but I really do think that you have done something special. And when I compliment you on that, I wasn't just saying it to say it. I really think you have. I mean, I think, you've probably heard this quote before. It's said different ways of like, if you're not growing, you're dying, or like you're either moving forwards or moving backwards, kind of like a river. It's never like completely still. I think human beings are really fulfilled and excited by growth. Like, we don't necessarily have to be at a certain place, but we do have to feel like we're going somewhere. And you might be good with where you're at now, but maybe at a certain point you might feel a little bit stagnant of like, I'm not going anywhere. I think, like you said, our like what forces us to do stuff is dissatisfaction, right? So our dissatisfaction is a certain level. And then, for whatever reasons, it rises and hits a certain breaking point, and we take a certain action. Right. So you're kind of like, hey, Justin, if I don't have any dissatisfaction, how do I sort of maybe create it so that I keep moving? It sort of sounds like your question in a way. And I think the answer to that is to set more goals and set bigger goals. Right. So let's say, you've got 300 members in the Leesburg Chamber of Commerce or whatever, right? And you're like, man, we're crushing it. We got 300 people. Like, I'm really happy and I'm really content, right? So let's say that's here. And then let's say all of a sudden you set a goal that in the next 12 months, I want to be at 600. I want to double in the next 12 months or even more than that, right? Let's say something that's like really big and really clear of like, today is what, August 8th. So if you set a goal, if you were at 300, and let's say that took, 5 years to build or whatever to get, and you added those 200 more people in 5 years or whatever. And then you're like, I want to get to 600 people by August 8th, 2023. It's a very clear goal. Your mind sort of snaps in of like, okay, I get what that means. It's exciting. Or if that's not a big enough number, you can make a bigger number that's exciting. And then what happens is when you're here and you say that you're going to do something, first of all, human beings, we don't like to contradict each other. Or we don't like, we do like to contradict each other. We don't like to contradict ourselves. You know what I meant? So let's say that you write down, I have 600 members in the Leesburg Chamber of Commerce by August 8th, 2023, right? And let's say you've got 300 now. So you're saying you're this, but really you're this. And that creates the dissatisfaction, that gap. Because you're looking at where you're at and you're looking up there and you're like, oh, I'm not there. And that space creates that dissatisfaction. So if you're not feeling any urgency or any dissatisfaction or any like motivation, might be a good way to say like, why do I need to do more when things are already going well? If everything already looks perfect, you're right. You sort of don't, but you always kind of have to go to something else that excites you. And maybe the goals you were thinking of, you're like, oh, maybe I should set this or should set that, but maybe that doesn't really excite you. Whenever we don't feel very motivated, it's usually because we don't have more goals and, or they're not big enough and, or they're not exciting enough and, or they're not clear enough. Right. So that would be an example with the Leesburg Chamber of Commerce. Maybe you've lost a bunch of weight, but, maybe you want to get to like a different weight that's like really elite, like model looking weight, or maybe you want to be able to do X amount of push-ups or sit-ups, or maybe you're making 100 or 150 or 200, but you wonder if you'd be able to make 400 in a year. There's a great line, I think it's by Jim Rohn, where he says it's you don't set goals just because to achieve that goal, but because of who you would need to become to achieve that goal. So let's say if you've got 300 members.
You need to say that again, because that's a good.
So it's not, you don't just set a goal just because be cool to achieve it or whatever for the status or power, the money of whatever that money goal was or whatever. It's because of who you need to become, right? So if you're making 100 grand a year and you want to make 200 or 300 or 500 or $1 million, you really would have to become a different person to do that. You know, if you have 300 people in the chamber and you want 1,000 and you want that in like 1 year or 2 years or something, you'd have to become a different person. So it's like you're doing well already, but you would have to be doing way better to get to a level that's way higher. And that's exciting, and it brings out the best of us. And the way the goals that we set really affect us, right? So I give the example of, let's say if you're making 30 grand a year and your goal for the year is to make 35, it's just not going to be that exciting because it's like, I'm already, But if it's to go from 30 to 90 or 100, all of a sudden you're like, oh, like, could I do that? Like, yeah, I am excited by that. So, since we've got about 6 to 7 minutes with you. So what I try to do in the show that we've been doing is really try to give some specific, like, so you walk out of here with like, here's some specific things I could start doing now. So what would be, I know you're doing great in lots of categories, which is amazing, and that's a huge blessing. Something I tell people is I definitely am a believer life is a momentum game. And when we don't have it, it's tough to make more. When we do have it, which you do, that's the best time to make more because you've already got it. Like the action in motion will stay in motion until acted upon by an outside force, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and I mean, and I'm not at a place at this moment where I feel content at all, but I also am like kind of looking to the future of, you know, making sure and seeing, like, I don't want to get to that place. I don't want to get to a place.
You won't, you don't have to. Life is an infinite game. There is no cap out of like, oh, but what if I reach the ceiling and then I'm stuck? Like, no, there is no ceiling.
Oh, and yes, no, but I think that, but I 100% agree with you. But I feel like, and I've watched this with a lot of people, I think it's more of a mental ceiling that you hit. Yeah. And I don't, and, you know, for me, you know, I definitely have hit that in the past.
Yeah.
To an extent, I always knew you always have to kind of reinvent. You always have to continue to look for the you know, the new thing, the shiny, you know, what's going to be our wow factor for this event, or what's going to be our wow, you know, like that's, you know, our world is, you know, events and put, you know, things. But I think for me, it's also in just so many different, you know, every aspect of life, it's kind of like there is the momentum. How do you continue to build on that momentum to, you know, and in that continue to, you know, not get to that place of being satisfied where you've stopped growing.
Yeah. So. No, and it's a good question. And I think the answer is to continue to set goals that excite you. You know, and it's not just about career. I just gave the career example because, you know, that was the context I met you guys, was of the chamber. But, you know, another thing Jim Rohn says is that, you know, everything affects everything else. I'm a huge believer in that. So for me, a non-business goal, personal goal, is I really want to be able to be a very high level pro, like salsa dancer, not necessarily the performing, but like be able to social dance and be like a really elite dancer. That's something that I've kind of wanted for a long time. And I can tell you that me making goals like that helps me to make more money, and it helps me in other categories because all the categories affect each other. You need to invest in all the categories. I give the analogy of like a garden. You know, your life is like a garden, and you know, you've got spirituality, family, friends, romance, career, money, travel, adventure. There's all these different categories of your garden. And whenever we neglect any categories, they can all pull each other down. The better job we do at investing in all of them, they all pull each other up and the momentum builds. So with momentum, everything is affecting everything. And so really the ideal is to have things that excite you across all categories. So I'll give you another non-business example for me. So I recently set some exciting fitness goals where I'd been doing a lot of push-ups, and I was like, oh, I wonder what the world record is. And so for push-ups on your knuckles in 60 seconds, the world record is 113 push-ups. And so I have a goal to be able to do 114 by January 1st. And I wrote it all out and I'm tracking it. And then I'm trying to do the same for handstand push-ups. The record is like 56 in 1 minute. And so I'm trying to do 57 by January 1st and I'm tracking it. And, even me just having these certain goals, you carry yourself differently. So I think the answer is to keep setting things that excite you, and not just in career, in all the categories. Like, how do you build momentum? Well, when you've got momentum, that's actually the best time to build momentum. So you're actually in a great spot, but continuing to think of like, well, what would really excite me now? It doesn't always have to be career. It can be other stuff too. Or maybe career is part of it, but maybe what would really excite you is there's somewhere you've always wanted to travel and you put that on the calendar and you're more excited, so let's see.
I definitely think you're right in the sense of like all of that really connecting, because I think that was the difference for me was I had always had like one or two of those boxes checked. Okay, well, so work's going well, check. This is going well, check. But then this, like whether it was my physical health or my personal like relationship, significant, was a struggle. So these two were struggling. These two were great or good. I'm going to go back to good. And it's not, and then when you're kind of firing on all cylinders, it just becomes this whole other thing.
Yes.
And that's like, and I mean, and I don't want anybody to think that I have in any way some kind of perfect life. And I know, Justin, heard, about, I mean, I know I've shared some of the struggles that I have. I mean, this has come a long way. This is not in any way, it took a lot of tears and honestly, a point of not wanting to get out of bed and thinking I need to just give up, or wanting to maybe give up and having to think about what that would look like for the rest of my life and my family, and realizing, well, okay, that's just not an option. So I got to do something else. That's important to understand, that this is, I might be really, really good right now, but that's just, it didn't just happen by any means.
No, I know. I mean, you put the work in and you've done amazing. Another thing that can maybe help you is, sometimes maybe you're good where you're at in some ways, but maybe you just want to even know if you're capable.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's fun to set a goal just because it's like, I wonder if I could even do that, whether it's the amount of money or the fitness goal or the travel goal, or like, it's not always the thing, but like who you would have to become. And then you just want to know if you could, like, could I do that? Like, could I pull that off? So, something I do with my clients, but you could sort of start to do on your own too, is really looking at all the different categories of your life and list them out and rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, and you can see, where are the higher categories, where are the lower categories, and start chipping away at incrementally improving each of them and starting to define like, well, what does a 10 look like in each of these categories? What is on a scale of 1 to 10, and what does a 10 look like being, your ideal day? What would be happening? Ideal week, month, year. So, things can be going good, but I definitely think human beings do need to be always kind of growing to maintain that good feeling. So continuing to, because when we say I make this much by then, or my body looks like this by then, or I travel to this place by then, but we're not there, we're here, that difference creates the dissatisfaction. So if you're not experiencing any dissatisfaction, it's because you haven't really set anything else. Or at least if you have, it's way too close to where you are that it doesn't really excite you, that it doesn't really create dissatisfaction. So you don't really do much.
Yeah.
Well,
and you're like kind of making me think now, because I've been thinking about this a lot. So I used to be a competitive swimmer way back when, in my former days in college and high school and before that. But I recently, over the last 3 or 4 months, started swimming again. And it just, I feel like I feel like I've like taken the time back. I'm going back in time. And because the way I feel when I get out of the water, like doing a really good workout, and I've been, trying to push myself each time. It's different this time, because normally you have a coach that tells you this is your workout, and I'm having to kind of come up with my own workouts, and I'm doing it on my own, but I'm finding ways to challenge myself in that. But one of the things I did, honestly, after about a month and a half, I looked at the Masters national qualifying times.
Awesome.
Thinking,
I like it.
I just am curious where I set in that. But now I'm kind of, I'm thinking I need to set a little bit more of a goal than just that. Like I need to set a goal of like, I'm going to go. I'm going to go.
Yeah. So we're at the time for now. So I want to make sure we get to everybody. Also, my Zoom, it says 7 minutes and 45 seconds. So whenever we're getting close to the 1 minute, we can just log off and log back on. But yeah, I mean, my answer to that, like I can tell you with dancing, I dance about almost like 4 times a week on my own practicing, and I'm wanting to add in more stuff too. But that 45 minutes, hour that I dance is like the best part of my day by far. And I know that my return on investment of that hour spent is gigantic, even in a business sense. Like when you swim, if you love to swim, not even just to exercise, but you love swimming, you are getting a business return. You really are. And that momentum that you're building is affecting all the areas. So all the momentum that you build in every area affects all the momentum of the whole. So all categories of your life matter. So looking at all the different categories, thinking about where you're at on a scale of 1 to 10, thinking about what a 10 would be, thinking about some things that would excite you, right? Because whenever we set something that excites us, it's above where we're at, that's where the dissatisfaction comes from. If you're not feeling any, you haven't set big enough or clear enough or exciting enough goals. So you need more of that. And it's okay to be in a good place, but remember, it's like maybe just because you want to know if you could, or because you want to know, because it would excite you, the type of person you would have to become to do that thing.
Yeah.
So I want to move on. If we have time, we can loop back around to people, but does that help?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, I think and I've been taking notes. So
awesome. Good. And probably you guys can each take notes on each other's stuff, because I'm sure there will be things that will be said that will be helpful for everybody. So, all right, Joa.
I was trying to think of what would be a good question. I guess the biggest one for me is I'm very proactive in my personal growth. I read a lot. I take a lot of classes. I'm a big note taker. I'm always very big on pushing forward. But my biggest frustration, I think right now is it doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm very stuck. I can't seem to move forward. Even if I write down goals, if I set plans, if I make plans of action to move forward, it's like I never seem to be able to get over that hump to start achieving the goals. And this has been probably, especially in the last year, just very, very frustrating. So I spent a lot of my time very frustrated because I can't seem to get unstuck. And, I'm consistently trying to find the way to get unstuck, and I can't. And that is an aspect over all of my life, not just one specific item, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. And I just set my timer, so we've got probably about 15 minutes or something.
You can shut me up whenever.
Okay, no worries. I just want to make sure we get as enough time for Patty that it's as equal as I could possibly get it. I know, the time goes quick with this, as you can tell. There's always, with life, there's a million things to talk about, and there's infinite levels of depth you could kind of take it to. So I'm just trying to move as fast as I can. So we're at 10:36, so we've got 24 minutes total. So yeah, let's say maybe about 12 to 13 minutes. Okay. All right. And just I want to make sure respect everybody's time. Does anybody have a meeting that's exactly at 11?
No.
Okay. So I have a little extra time if we go over. I just wanted to, sometimes people have the meeting right on the hour, so I wanted to be sure.
No, but I have an 11. I have to be somewhere at 11. I have a thing I have to be at 11:10, so I will have to kind of jump out. But if you're still with Patty, I'll just pop out. We're good.
Okay. Got it. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Joa, so there's sort of 4 main categories that I say that people get stuck. So you can write these down. The first is state, right? Which is what we did the workshop on. So, and for the people listening that haven't heard me say this before, state's like your level of focus, energy, vibrancy you're showing up in the world with day to day, moment to moment. So if you think of like Michael Jordan, game 7, peak state, shows up, wins the championship, he executes, he wins. You think of the people that the athletes that sort of show up mentally checked out, they clearly didn't come to play, and they show up, they don't play very well, and they lose, right? So so state is the first one. And guys, for all of you, actually, this would be a great activity for all of us to do together right now. I want you to rate your state on a scale of 1 to 10, and write it down for all 3 of you, where 10 is like, hey, Justin, I'm managing my state, my energy, how I'm showing up in the world, grounded in the moment, executing what I'm doing with all of who I am. A 10 would be pro athlete style, like very elite pro athlete style, the vast majority of the day. 1 would be like, I'm severely anxious, I'm severely depressed, I'm completely stuck, I can't do anything, right? So I want you to write that down. And then let me know when you guys have that number. Yeah. Okay, good. So the second place people get stuck, I sort of give these 4 categories. Like when I'm first meeting someone and they tell me all the places they're stuck, and then I kind of go into my explanation of how I help. These are basically the things that I say, which is basically the answer to your question. It's like, why do people get stuck? And what do you do about that? Right? Which is a good question. So the first is state, right? And I say this to people a lot, which is, I really believe you could have all the goals and plans in the world, but if your state isn't good enough, if you don't have enough energy to go at life, then nothing really matters, right? So that's the first one. And Joa, you were there for that workshop, so you know more about that than these 2 ladies, at least at the moment. But that would be my first answer. My second answer of the 4 main categories people get stuck is clarity, right? So sometimes we think we know what we want, but it's not clear enough. So, versus saying like, I want to make more money versus I want to be making $100,000 a year by August 8th, 2023, So, Joa, for you, maybe it's like, I want to travel, or I want to spend more time with my daughter, or I want my confidence to be higher, or I want to get some more members for the chamber. Like, these are just examples of things you might want. But if it's not clear enough, your mind will sort of stall out. You won't do anything. Now, it might be that it is more clear than that. One thing with clarity, sometimes if you're stalling out, it might be because the goal is so gigantic, like it's so far beyond where you're at, that you sort of get paralyzed and freak out and don't do anything. That's another way we can mess up clarity. So the first thing, state, right? We don't have enough energy to take action. The second thing, usually we don't have enough clarity of what it really is that we want, and our mind stalls out, right? There's a line by Einstein where he says that your goal should be so clear that you could explain it to a child, and that child could explain it to another child, and that other child could draw a picture of what you meant. So basically, almost none of us have clarity like that. And we want that in all areas of our life, right? And then we want it in terms of what an ideal day, week, month, year looks like. So that's definitely a huge area we still get stuck. The third reason why you might not be taking action, the place that people get stuck, is our stories, right? So we all have stories about ourselves and how we believe the world works, and we always follow through on these stories. Some people call this beliefs, your mindset, your paradigm, your philosophy. Everybody calls this something different, kind of the same concept, right? So let's say that you want to make a certain amount in a year, right? But let's say you say, hey, Justin, I would like to do that, but the problem is that I'm just really not that person, and that's never really been me, and I've never really made that much, and my family maybe didn't make that much, and that was really never me, right? Or maybe that's something related to fitness, or maybe that's something related to something else where you say to yourself that that's just not really who I am, right? So we're a lot like your stories. It's a lot like a train on a train track, right? So the same way a train will follow track A going to destination A, it's not just going to fly off the track and go to track B, because that's not how trains work. It can't just jump over there and do that. And so we're very similar with our stories. So if you think I am just person type A going direction A, yet you want to go direction B, it's going to be nearly impossible to do that, right? So starting to look at, okay, well, what are my stories? And your stories by your results in your life. So the areas in your life where you're just killing it, you probably have good stories that I'm the type of person that does this. the areas of your life where your results are not as good, probably story's not as good either. It's not really me. I wish it was, but it is what it is. Or this is just how the world works. It sucks, but life's just this way, right? And a lot of times their stories have some partial truth to them, which is why they're tough. But a lot of times they're not serving us. And the version of the story that would take us this way would, probably have just as much truth as the one taking us this way, except it actually takes us where we want to go. And just like anything else, it's building the habit of learning to see yourself in the way the world works in a new way and chipping away at the drops in the bucket of the actions that are slowly making you go that way. But stories are changeable. Like, you don't have to be stuck with the same stories forever, which I think a lot of people think that you do. You really can create different stories about yourself and start to execute in a different direction. It's uncomfortable, but you can do it. So that's the third main place people get stuck. And then the fourth main place out of the four main places is strategy, right? So I think a lot of times maybe we've got these goals we want to happen, but we really haven't written out like, okay, well, what exactly would it really take for that to happen? Like, what are all of the things, almost like a recipe that you write out? They'd be like, okay, I'm here. I want to be here. And based on the thinking and the research and the thought I'm putting into this, if I did then I would probably get here. So for example, with me with the push-ups, right? So my state has to be good. A clear goal. I set the Guinness World Record for 114 push-ups on my knuckles by January 1st, 2023. Super clear. Big goal, exciting goal. My story, I'm the type of person that does that, right? That has to be there. And then strategy. Okay, well, how many am I doing now? Okay, well, where would I need to be at these different checkpoints? And so I wrote out each month, like on a certain day, where would I need to be by this day in my push-ups? Like to track it and be like, okay, well, I got to make sure that I'm hitting these checkpoints and breaking it down. And so I have written out, okay, well, if I do this, and this, then I will get this. And most people don't have that either. They haven't really written out a plan. And a tough thing about plans is that plans can change, right? Sometimes we're trying to execute a plan and then we realize that wasn't the best plan. And then we got to make another. And then we realize that wasn't the best plan and we make another. So sometimes there's some playing with it. But for whatever it is in your life, business or personal, it's a combination of those things. And what you guys can even do now, so rate your state, which you already did. I want you to rate your clarity on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is like the Einstein version, right? Explain to a kid, explain to another little kid, that other little kid could draw a picture, and meaning that that for every area of your life, business, money, adventure, travel, fun, your passions, romance, your children, everything. And that you would know your ideal day, week, month, year, what would be happening exactly. So that would be 10. 1 would be like, Justin, I've got no clue about any of that stuff. So I want you to write down that number. Tell me when you have it. Just shake your head yes. Scale of 1 to 10. Yeah. Is that a yes, Choa? Okay. Sorry, I couldn't tell. Your story. Oh, it's okay. Your stories rate scale of 1 to 10. So 10 would be like, hey, Justin, I really believe that like I'm the fucking champion and I make this shit happen. And I believe that deep down in my core. And I know that whatever the fuck I'm trying to do, I'm going to make happen. And 1 is like, this just isn't me. And this just isn't the way the world works. And I just can never be that. And I'm just not that now. And I never was these things. And I just never will be. And it sucks, but it is what it is. So I want you to write down your stories on a scale of 1 to 10. Business, personal, all of them put together. If you had to put a number, let's say over the past 6 months, write the number down for that. Shake your head when you've got it, how much you believe those things. Yeah, I know it's tough. And then I want you to write down a number for strategy. So 10 is like, hey, Justin, I've got like these crystal fucking clear plans in all these areas of my life, exactly what I'm executing to do. 10, every area of your life, how, all the things that need to happen for those goals to happen. One is like, Justin, I never even freaking thought of that. And I have 0 of that. And I never have. And that doesn't make any sense to me. So when you have a number for that, what I want you to do, we've got about 13 minutes, so we'll wrap up shortly. But I want you to add those numbers up. Add up those 4 numbers and divide them by 4.
Now I have a question.
So what is your number when you add those up and divide by 4?
I don't know how to rate a couple of them because I have a duality problem. That's my question.
Okay. That's okay.
Okay. So there's certain, go ahead and finish with that. And then I will state my duality problem.
Okay. And then Patty, I want to make sure we get enough time for you. If we go 5 or 10 minutes over, Patty, do you have time to do that? I can't hear you. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. I want to make sure I'm giving time to everybody and I'm doing my best to move as fast as possible.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, these things, there's a lot to look at. Let's say we've got maybe like I'll set the timer for 5 minutes. So what I was gonna say is to try to add up those and divide. And so and just let me know the number you've got. We can go back and I'll answer the duality question. But just tell me the best you can, let's say over the past 6 months, right? Because maybe you're like, well, Justin, right now I feel good, but yesterday I feel bad, right? So just over the past 6 months, your averages of each of those things, the best you can. It's not an exact science, right? This isn't perfect. It's just something we can measure, at least try to measure. And I want you to add those up and divide by 4 and just give me the best number you can of what you think it is. I know it's not perfect.
7.
Okay. There's no right or wrong answer, by the way. If you're like, Justin, I'm a 0, I'm not going to be like, oh, this call is over.
Mine's like a 6.9.
Okay. That's very precise. 7,
well,
6.9.
I had to divide it,
Yeah. Joa, don't feel pressured by these women to say
well, mine's like probably a 6.5, but I'm not 100% sure I would agree with my own point system on a couple of these.
Okay, so let's go into more detail. So we've got about 4 minutes. What were your questions? You were like, hey, Justin, well, I have like a duality.
Well, when it comes to like state and stories, those are the ones I have the biggest problem with, because I like I said, because I'm so proactive, I constantly try to put myself in a certain mental state of positivity, of forward, of movement. And it's like, you're like, go, go, go. And you're in. And so I often feel like I'm in a very good, positive state.
Okay.
But then I feel like somebody came by and then blindsided, punched me hard on the side of the head and knocked me over. And then I'm like, okay. And then I feel, in that moment, I'm just like, how do I get, and then I have to pull myself back up, and I'm like, no, I don't want to sit down here beat up and a mess. So I'll pull myself back up. So although my state is high, it's because I'm pushing that hard to be in that state. And it's the same with my stories. Like I am all the time like, yes, I am a rock star. I'm happening. I'm going to get there. I'm going to make it happen. But then I get knocked over so hard on a regular basis that there's just some days where I can't even get up. Like I'm trying to find that thing. So like my story may be a 10 one day, and then by the end of the day, I'm like at like -5. I don't even have anything left. And so I don't know how to rate that. How do I rate that? Because I'm constantly feeling beat up and knocked down so hard that it's like to get back up.
Sometimes you're a 10 and sometimes you're a 0, maybe a 5. I don't know.
Well, that's kind of where I went with it. I went with that because I kind of went with the middle of the road because I'm like, I spend most of my time in a very positive place, because if I sit there, self-pity gets you nothing.
Yeah.
You know, self-pity parties, like I'll every once in a while let myself indulge in a pity party, like, oh God, my life. And then I'll move on and go, because I'm like, that doesn't buy me anything, you know. It's kind of like eating a sundae. I ate it, okay, that was delicious, and now I'm fatter, It's like, it didn't really help me.
After age 30, we all know how our metabolisms change. So
so it's like, that's what's hard for me, is it's a constant battle of what that looks like. And it's not even like it's like I'm constantly trying to be in this good state, but then something happens to knock me out of it.
Yeah, I understand.
And that's why I have a hard time judging that.
So let's see. I've probably got about my 1 minute response or so.
Give me a 1 minute, Justin.
Yeah. See, that just threw off my train of thought. Me setting my timer threw off my train of thought. I think that it's a daily commitment. It's a daily commitment to show up with your state at a 10. It's not something that just happens. Remember from the workshop, right? Some of these things that, it's not going into all the details for other two ladies here, but state is not contingent on circumstance. State is not contingent on how you feel. Some circumstances come up. Okay, my state's not contingent on circumstance, so I'm going to get back to where I need to be. Oh, but I'm feeling shitty. Okay, well, I can still show up. Life is not always about feeling amazing, right? I think people put too much emphasis on feelings. Your feelings or circumstances can still be off and you can still show up. There's a great line, which I think it might be from Jim Rohn too. He's a very quotable person. But he talks about that, life is always going to be opportunity mixed with difficulty. So there's never going to be a time where there's just no difficulty in life. And, so if we only show up when things are good, but there's always difficulty, then we're going to be in trouble, right? Because so I think some of it is an expectations thing. Expect things to be difficult. There's always going to be stuff that's tossing us around. We just have to assume that that's going to be happening, right? And then another, I guess, tidbit that I can give is that, you have to understand the price you pay for staying down too long. Like, it's one thing to get knocked down, like you said, sometimes get knocked down. Like, I get knocked down, we all do. But let's say if you guys are all pretty similar numbers, you add up all these things, 6.5, 7. Our results in our life, business and personal, are going to very directly correlate to these numbers. And even though you guys are doing pretty well, 6.5, 7, I can tell you that 3.5 remaining is still freaking gigantic. It really, really is gigantic. So I think reminding yourself of the price you pay for letting yourself get too phased. And some of that goes back to the goals you have, right? So if you don't really have some big goals that are exciting you, you can sort of afford to let yourself go. Like, oh man, life, like it's beating me up. But if you have these things that are really exciting you, you start to realize, oh shit, the price of me staying down here too long, or too often being too long down here, the price is too high because I'm not going to get what I want, right? And then the dissatisfaction increases. Oh shit, if I stay down here, I won't get what I want. Dissatisfaction rises. Oh, okay, so I can't be staying down here too long. So those are a couple thoughts. I mean, I obviously can always do more, and these are lifetime things, right? And we're trying to do it in 15 minutes a person. But those are the places people get stuck. Understanding it's always going to be opportunity mixed with difficulty. There's always going to be tough things that come your way. And just recommitting to your state's not contingent on circumstance, not contingent on how you feel. It's okay if you don't always feel amazing, you can show up anyway. Going back to making sure you have some exciting goals so that you realize the price you pay for letting yourself get so knocked around. It means you're not going to get what you want. And if you really want what you want, then you say to yourself, well, I can't have that, so I got to get back up and go over here. So those are, I know that's a lot, but I'm just trying to give you some pieces to play with. So Patty, let's get to you, and we can go a couple minutes over. So we'll end up with a very similar amount of time for you too. And Sandy, you need to leave right at 11. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I have a doctor's appointment, but
no, that's okay. Joa, if you want to stay on, do you need to leave right at 11? Okay, so we'll probably go like an extra 10 minutes, so that way Patty gets about the same amount of time. Sandy, I know you gotta go. It's amazing to see you. Of course, I know you guys might have more questions for me. If anybody, well, Sandy, you're leaving now, so Sandy for you, but if anybody is interested in learning more about coaching, I'm definitely happy to talk one-on-one and hear more of you guys' specifics of like exactly where you're getting stuck. So it'll be a more detailed version, and I can go a little more detailed into like what I think the answers might be. And you can let me know if that speaks to you guys. So Sandy, I know you got to head out. If you want to stay for 3 minutes, that's okay. If you want to go now. But yeah, so Patty, let's go to you. Thank you for your patience. Trying my best to go as fast as I can.
No, that's okay.
So talk to me about where you're getting stuck or what you would like help with.
Okay. First of all, I just feel very grateful at the moment because of, especially with Joa, I can actually see myself in a lot of things that you were saying.
Yeah.
And of course, what Sandy was, I mean, when you were talking about how you were putting yourself back on track and get your ducks in a row, and you're doing great about it. I mean, that's also encouraging. It's amazing that, and I thank you for that opportunity that we are creating at the moment. So we are learning from each other, and also thank you, Joa, for opening your heart to us, because it's not easy sometimes, to say it in front of people what's going on with you, especially when you're stuck at something. Well, this is where I come from. Most of my life, I've been put in a situation where I have to take control or find a solution or step up and do something about it, because I have been putting my life into different, very difficult, extreme situations where there's no time to linger. And you just have to do it, jump on it, and try to find out a way to solve it. And that's how it's been for the past almost 12 years until I started this new career. And everything has a meaning why I was struggling so bad. And you know that already, Justin. I lost my husband almost 12 years ago. And it was a very traumatic experience for me. And thank God, I remarried. As you know, I found love again 4 years ago, and I'm happily married.
I know. I
to
see.
a gringo.
Yeah.
So it's been an adventure, and of course, real estate, it's not an easy job, although it's very rewarding, because you're always meeting people. And to me, it's just another classroom, because I was in education before for 22 years. So this is another opportunity for me to learn, because as a teacher, you not always teach. Most of the time you learn. So right now, I'm getting stuck because of going back to what you were saying, which is very interesting, on the four, how do you call those? Two things?
4 categories or places we get stuck.
Yeah. So I think my strongest point is clarity, because I've pretty much always known where I'm heading. Okay. And I do have a specific target. Okay. And even though sometimes I feel like Joa, that even though I try to do so much, but then something comes along and it pulls me down, and I'm like, geez, I was just right there. And I mean, mentally and emotionally and everything, literally speaking. But then I, just like you, I just get dragged back down. And then, just try to breathe. And because I said, okay, I've done this before. I mean, I know I can't do this, but it's a process, and it's been affecting my health to that point. Yeah. Because it's a constant fight with energy situations. And it's like I'm going against a big, like a big rock, and I'm pushing that rock every single day. And because you know me, I'm very optimistic.
I do.
And
you guys both are. You guys are very similar in a lot of ways, actually.
And I have sometimes a patient of a saint. I say, okay, tomorrow will be another day. Let's start over. But you know, that is pretty much what I'm getting stuck at. So, and strategies, and I'm sharing these numbers with you. Okay. Stories, I'm an 8. Okay. And state, I'm a 7. But where I'm lacking the most is the strategies, 5 to 6. Okay. That's where I put my number right there. And I think this is very connected to my question to you. Okay. And it's about making yourself accountable. Okay. Being self-employed requires a lot of concentration and a lot of motivation and having a big why every single day. Otherwise, you'll be like, because, you know, like my husband says, you get up every morning without a job, basically. So you have to start over and thinking in ways. Sometimes the strategies, they go and they seem to be working fine, but then, you know, something happens in your life, you lose accountability, then the strategies are all over the place. So how do you do that? Because I've seen you.
How do you, can you say the question again? Like,
how do you make yourself accountable every single day?
How do you make yourself accountable every single day? I think, and first of all, I mean, I sympathize with what you're saying, for one, and Joe with what you're saying, and with what Sandy was saying too. But just so you guys know, I mean, this stuff is hard for me too. You know, I'm not, okay, this says we have 10 minutes. These things are so annoying. It's not so easy to, you know, do all this stuff. And I'm a work in progress too, you know, so these are all lifetime things we try to master, and the better we get at them, the better our life can go. But that doesn't mean that it's easy. I think some thoughts that I could share that would maybe help with that is just kind of going back to the clarity of what you want. And then, you know, really, what is your 10% that gets you that? So are you guys familiar with the 80-20 rule? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts, correct, which is really 90% of your results come from 10% of your efforts. Most people believe it's more like 90-10. So I think tips with day-to-day stuff is just like, well, you know, what needs to be happening today? You know, what are the activities that I need to be doing that are going to produce what I want? So if what you want is, you know, another listing, then it's like, okay, well, what is your plan to predictably produce that? And then what do you need to be doing today to work on that? You know, sometimes I think entrepreneurship, and we're all a work in progress on that, right? Including me too. And I don't say I'm a business coach, say I'm a life coach, but, you know, a lot of people get stuck in business and personal for very similar reasons. You know, with real estate, I think the good news about real estate is that it's very clear what you should be doing, you know, like lead generation wise, right? So you can either do door knocking, you can do open houses, you can call expireds, you can call for sale by owners. You've got your sphere of influence. If you've got the money, you can, you know, buy ads on Zillow, you can run ads on Facebook and Instagram, or you could run Google ads or whatever. But really the stuff without paying any money, you've got expireds, for sale by owners, door knocking, open houses, your sphere, right? So, you know, luckily real estate is not a secret. It's not a secret how you be successful in real estate. If you go knock on 100 doors a day, you're going to be successful. Like you just are, you know, especially in a market where there's not enough listings, you know, probably there's not much expireds, but maybe the for sale by owners and door knocking. But just kind of knowing what your things are that are your producing activities, your 10%, and really trying your best to live in those. Because I think most real estate agents and most people in general, we spend way too much time in our 90% that's only giving us our 10% return. And we spend very little time on those 10% tasks, but that 10% is where our 90% is. So I think day to day, not letting yourself get too overwhelmed by like the giant picture, but just like, knowing how many deals you want, maybe let's say for the rest of the year, and then thinking about, okay, well, where are those going to come from? Knowing your numbers, like, look at how you're generating business now, and knowing how many people you have to reach out to get a certain number of appointments, to get a certain number of contracts, and then just focusing on the day-to-day that you're doing those things, if you're doing the open houses, a lot of times, sometimes we're doing some of the right things, but we're not doing enough of it. Like some realtors are like, well, I get business by doing open houses, and that's what I do. It's like, okay, well, how often are you doing that? And they're like, oh, like once every 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, how many signs are you putting out? Like, well, like 20. It's like, you need to be doing like a bunch per week and putting out 100, so a lot of times we're just not doing enough. But like I said, real estate strategy, not that I'm a real estate coach, but the good news about real estate strategy is we do know what we should be doing, is just not comfortable to do it. But if you commit to your 10% tasks, really as a realtor, all you should be doing is you should either be in a listing appointment, or you should be lead generating to get a freaking listing appointment. There's really nothing else you should be doing to spend your time. So whether you want to get those listing appointments by door knocking or approaching the for sale by owners, or whether you want to lead generate by doing your open houses, you should either be in appointments or you should be creating appointments. That's it. And then day to day, just making sure you're doing that and knowing your numbers. So if you have to knock on, 500 doors to get a listing, then you could knock on 2,000 doors a month and you could be getting a new listing per week. But it's just getting yourself to do it. But getting yourself to do it is the state and your stories, right? And a lot of people, the reason realtors don't lead generate is because their state is not good enough. And it's because their stories are not good. I want to give you some examples. So most people do not do these uncomfortable lead generating things because their stories about themselves are that, oh, I'm not the person that does that. Their story about what they're doing is that it's being pushy and salesy and annoying and sleazy, and they wouldn't want somebody else to do that to them, and oh, it's like all these things. And then their stories about the prospect are that, oh, they're not going to want me to be knocking on their door. They're really not going to appreciate this. They're going to be annoyed at me. They're going to rip my head off. They hate it when people do this. Like, we've got realtors have a lot of very bad stories. And those things are enough to completely make you not lead generate at all. So like I said, I mean, I think for realtors, the strategy is actually not the hard part. The strategy is the state and stories part, because that's what gets you to execute those things. So what are you doing to get business now? And this is going to cut off in about 4 minutes. So let's say we've got about 4 minutes.
Well, I don't want to make it, because I know you're a life coach, and it's very nice. And I would say not just nice, but it's super, super cool what you're doing and helping others by so many testimonials that I like I said, I watch you and I follow you. And it's very inspirational. What do you do? Because it's hard. It's hard. Life in general is hard. And also another thing that I would like to point at, it's what Joe was mentioning about. Sometimes you might be at different, you have to grade yourself at a 10 sometimes, or many days could be a 10. And it's just like life. It's, even though you were trying to give a number, and I see where you're going with this, it's sometimes very hard just to keep up, maintain yourself at that rate. Mm-hmm. But to me, what's most important is like to have that big why going, and having the big why right now for me, it's my big why is my family. And at this stage in my life, I'm not looking for, I don't want to say that because words are very powerful. Yes, money it's a need, it's important, and I enjoy what I do for life. But there's a more deeper meaning in what we do, and I think that what you do, it could be simplified in what life should be about, helping others, and that's something that I would love to do. So my last question to you, and I'm gonna try to be brief so you don't have to do this again and everybody can go back to their routines. I just wanted you to ask you, what make you do this?
There you go. I think you know, the stuff that I help people with is not only more money, you know? So it's important to have goals in all the areas of your life. You know, for me, the fact that I have goals in the fitness category and in the dance category and these different things, it makes my life so much better. You know, so really, really thinking about what would really excite you in all the categories of your life. I think another thing too, though, is, you know, sometimes people think too macro and too like, oh, my why. And that's good. But sometimes people neglect the micro and that really bites them, you know? So you really have to make sure that you're doing whatever it takes on a day-to-day basis to get what you want. So yes, your why is important, but if you're not, and I'm not even talking about business, like even personal life stuff, like spending time with your husband or your kids or what, like, but you know, staying in that 10% and really being faithful in the small things that make up your life. Our why is important, but the things we do every day are important too. And that was really your original question, which was like, you know, how do you really show up every day? And I think it's a commitment to those little things that are getting you what you want, you know, and those might be business things and those might be personal life things. But being clear about what your outcome is and then what your 10% is that produces that, and then trying your best to live in that 10%. So yeah, your why is important, but remember that the small things are important too, because the small things make up your life. So when we're not doing the small things, our life is suffering, you know? So whether that's door knocking or whether that's going on the date with your husband or hanging out with your daughter, or whatever that is, there's business and personal ones. You know, the little things matter. The little things really, really do matter. To answer your question, looks like we're not getting Joa. That's funny. That's okay. But to answer your question, why did I go into this? So how do I say? So, you know, I went to Barcelona, right? So I'd gone there and I really had a great time, and I came back and I recorded this video. Maybe you saw this video before, it was on Instagram, called Invisible Risk. And in this video, I basically talked about, you know, we all see the risk of putting ourselves out there and failing, you know, like, oh, what if we lose time? We lose money, we're embarrassed, you know, whatever. But we don't see the risk of staying where we're at. And if we're on a path that we don't want to be on and we don't change, not only is that also risky, but we're guaranteed to fail. Guaranteed. So it's actually riskier to go for what we want than it is to stay here, because we're guaranteed to fail because it's going somewhere we don't want to go. And then let's think about time. So, you know, if you think you've got, you know, 45 years to live, then you're like, oh, you know, I'm good here. I've got time, right? But if you got a lot less time to live than you think, if you got 40 months or 40 days, then you're in trouble. So now you're on this path you don't want to be on. And if you've got less time than you think, then it's really risky, right? And so I started thinking about that. And, you know, I think the biggest mistake they make in their life is that they assume they have time. They're just going to do stuff later. And they don't know that they've got the time that they think. And they're on a very risky path. And they think going over here is risky. Staying where they're at, actually more risky. And so it's this concept of invisible risk that I said. And so once I recorded that video, I was like, man, you know, I think I got to leave my job, because this is not, I'm happy in some ways, but not in all ways, you know? You know, I was making good money and I was enjoying what I was doing, but I didn't feel like it was what I was called to do. And, you know, I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to be able to work from anywhere in the world, all these things. So when I left, I really didn't know what exactly I would do. I just knew that I wanted to help people to live the lives they actually wanted to be living, because I felt like most people weren't. And I felt like I'd be able to figure that out before I run out of money. So that was basically what I did. But then a little more background, you know, I've been through a lot of crazy stuff in my own life. Basically up until age 18, my life was really good. Soon after I turned 19, I got very, very sick and was like dying in the hospital. And basically 19 through 22 or 23, I was probably hospitalized 7 times or so. Throughout my 20s, you know, was just trying to stay alive, trying to stay in and out of the hospital, trying to get through school, had to drop out multiple times. And, you know, was just trying to find the medicines that would work for me physically, mentally. So my 20s was basically trying to stay alive and trying to get healthy. So that's like a decade of my life. And we're talking about like very scary stuff, very scary, very difficult. And so, you know, for me, not because I'm good or special or anything, I just feel like because of what I've been through, I kind of had to learn the lesson that life is not as guaranteed as we think it is. You know, we're not guaranteed the time that we think we have. You know, I was a young guy, never would have thought at 19 I could be dying. And, you know, that's kind of how that happened. So I think for me, I'm pretty good. I could be better, but I'm pretty good about living with a lot of urgency. And so, you know, the most fulfilling thing that I thought that I could do with my life, at least on the career side, would be to help people to build what they want. Because like I said, I think very few people do. I think very few people actually know how they want stuff to be going. Even fewer are actually going there. I think most people never go for it. I think most people just keep waiting and waiting, and they get to the end of their life and they die. That's really what I think. And I think that's really too bad, because I think life is such a blessing and a gift, and it's beautiful. And I want to be able to help people to create what they want with it, you know? So that's kind of a little bit of the story of why I started doing this. I think you're on mute, actually. I can't hear you.
I just mute myself just to avoid the background noise.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
Well, thank you for answering my questions. I think that I want to take it from here and try to implement what you shared with us today. Definitely.
Good. All right, ladies. Well, it's a pleasure. That's probably a good time to stop. Went a little longer than I thought, but it's tough to go through this quickly, to be honest, because there's so much stuff. But it was great to see you guys, and you know, hopefully those are some things that can be helpful that you can start thinking about and playing with and chipping away at. You know, obviously there's only so much I can give in like 15 or 20 minutes a person, but
I'm sorry, I have to go.
Go ahead.
Thanks, sorry.
That's okay.
Bye. It was nice meeting you, Patty.
Bye.
Patty, it's great seeing you also.
Same here.
Yeah, it's definitely pleasure. And you know, if the coaching is something you want to learn more about or interested in, you can always reach out to me, and I'd be happy to look at stuff with you if you would like. Okay.
Okay, sure, definitely. Thank you so much again for including me in this project of yours. Okay?
You're very welcome.
Wishing you the best. Send you all this great energy your way.
Thank you.
And prayers for a very successful career.
Thank you so much.
You're already there.
Oh, thank you.
Okay,
right.
Mala. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.